Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. So your life isn't going exactly as planned. Well, you're not alone, and we're here to help out. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specialize in free retirement home search and senior transition support. Here in studio with my co-host, Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss. Corey, coming right up on the first half of today's show, dealing with some of the most important legal issues that families face. Well, this is going to be a fun one. We're going to have a rapid-fire Q&A with legal expert and founder of Legal Logic, Jamie Benezri. We're going to be tackling all the hot topics like legal marijuana right now, marital issues, spousal support, child support, even how to contest a ticket. Yeah. That's going to come up on the first half.
Jamie's in the house. Woo-woo.
I think I was talking to you, Corey, about we've been very fortunate. You had that wonderful keynote speaker at the Caregiver Conference last week. Yep. And I've been very fortunate. This week is a full week of presentations about helping moms, dads transitioning. I'll be at the Teapot. It's called. It's a senior center in Lachine on Monday.
How cute is that?
Was that?
How cute is that?
Yeah, no,
what
it's
a name.
Great name.
Yeah.
I will be with a interesting group called Pioneers. This is all the retirees of the airline industry, Air Canada, the old CP industry. We've got 100 people registered for an event on Tuesday in Dorval, looking to, those that are looking to downsize and transition. And then on Wednesday, we'll be at RBC Dominion Securities downtown branch talking to wealth planners and a lot of, particularly, this is a women's group, a lot of adult daughters concerned about their folks. And so it will be a big week coming up.
So that's great. And we just thank you for letting us know. And we always need to make sure that those open lectures also are recorded, or that people know how to access them, because I think they're so important, and we don't have enough information about that. So I'm thrilled that you keep doing this and that they keep becoming available.
No, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So what do we have coming up on the second half?
So on the second half, I don't know if people really know this, but diabetes affects 1 in 10 Canadians. And we're going to be talking about that on the show, both diabetes and pre-diabetes, because we have one of Montreal's leading experts in the field who's going to be in the studio with us, Dr. Mark Sherman, and he's going to provide us with some very, very valuable information. That's coming up on the second half of the show.
Yeah, we're very blessed to have Dr. Sherman, one of the Montreal's leading endocrinologists, and will be very interesting for all those of you who are concerned about diabetes, maybe not about yourselves, but you might have a family member or a friend. Will be very interesting. All right, Corey, let's get started.
Let's go.
At one point in time, you're probably going to need some legal advice. It may be for family reasons, whether it's for divorce or child support payments, maybe a cohabitation or prenup. Could be business reasons, real estate reasons. And in 3 days, Corey, October 17th, we're starting to hear more and more about legal cannabis issues. And that's why we brought in no one other than Jamie Benezri, owner of Legal Logic, master networker, philanthropist, and serial entrepreneur. And you want to know what the worst is, Corey? He's a really nice guy too.
I'm all right.
Wow.
Oh, no. It's fun. It's fun. It's amazing to interview you. So we are very excited to have you in the house.
Yeah, Jamie, thank you. We did this rapid fire Q&A session about 6-7 months ago, and it's a way of tackling many legal topics without paying a lawyer $400 or $500 an hour. And we're going to try to get this done in the next 20 minutes or so.
I'm ready.
Okay.
You're ready.
All right, Jamie. Let's start with some potential cannabis issues.
Yes.
And we'll start with tenants' rights.
Yes,
absolutely. All of a sudden, you're in a condo or an apartment, and, if you're like me, you cannot stand the smell of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of tenants have that same situation. So what do we do?
So we're seeing this. I mean, it's just like with cigarettes.
Right.
You can't, there's issues with cigarettes the same way. So as of right now, if you want your tenants not to smoke weed, not to get high with all the fumes and cause issues with your neighbors, put it in the lease. It's got to start being an express clause that we're putting in, because, default to that, we fall, prey to the law, and the law says, hey, we're allowed to do this. So now we have more and more issues and more cases that are being pled at the rental board. And now we're in a situation where tenants, may have to start taking it orally or put it in their brownies if they want to get high kind of in their own space.
Okay, fair enough. So now we're not smoking or consuming in our homes, in our apartments. But what about the implications about driving under the influence?
Yeah, this is going to be a tricky one. So obviously, I don't know about you, but at my home, we started receiving little pamphlets about this is the kind of the playbook with marijuana. So we're seeing more and more the government's getting involved with a little bit of teasing information. But as of right now, there's going to be the same way that we treat alcohol. We're going to be doing the same kind of check-ins with weed or I should say marijuana. And, if the police has the sense that you smell, that your eyes are bloodshot, that you're slow, that you're high, he can pull you over. He could administer some tests, use his discretion to make sure that you're not under the influence. And the consequences will be very similar to those that we see right now in the criminal code.
Which makes sense, and I don't think the technology is quite there yet to test for marijuana as we do with blowing and getting a .08. So I think that could be a potential issue, gray area where there's going to be a lot of discretion from the police. However, common sense. Think of it as what you do with alcohol. The same thing with marijuana.
You got it.
All right, very good. It's going to be interesting the next couple of months to see how things are going because it will be a little bit of the wild west for the next little bit.
Yeah.
And we'll have to all together.
Attache ta tuque, like they say in Quebecois, right? It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, we're going to switch gears, Jamie, in this rapid fire Q&A.
Let's go.
We're going to go to family law. All right, we're going to talk divorce. It affects about 50% of our population here in Quebec. I get a lot of people talking about child support, and I'm sure you get the same question. How long do I have to pay child support for?
My most recent case that I've had, even about a week ago, somebody calls me, says, hey, you know what? My child is 24, is kind of finishing university right now, and I'm still paying. And, is this, appropriate? When can I love my kids, but when can I stop paying? I have my own kind of expenses to worry about as well. So the litmus test really is are your children independent? Are they financially independent? And can they live without the money that you're going to be giving to them? And by cutting you off at that point, is it going to cause an issue for the children? Are they still in school? Are they still economically dependent on the parent that wants to withdraw the support? And that's really the ultimate test here.
So the child going for his MBA and then PhD and secondary PhD.
Yeah, the 40-year-old MBA student is a little bit of an issue with two children. Yeah.
That is Jamie Ben-Isri. He is on fire as per usual. Thank you. He's talking with us on Life Unrehearsed. He's from Legal Logic, and he is just sharing all kinds of legal, very relevant information with us. Along the same lines, we talked about child support. What about spousal support?
Yeah, so this is another one. I mean, a lot of people think that, they get nervous. I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and they said, hey, I am moving in with my girlfriend. If we ever break up, is she going to be allowed to touch 50% of my home? Am I going to have to start paying her after 3 years? This whole concept of common law exists if I'm not married. And it's this whole Lola thing that we discussed with Guy Laliberté and Cirque du Soleil. If you're not married in Quebec, you do not get the 50% rights and the family patrimony. Spousal support is a real thing, and the less economically favored spouse can go after the other. So that is a real thing. And that is, again, the litmus test is what's a normal period of time for that person to get back on their feet, get a job, whether it's a Walmart or whether they're an engineer, able to get a job.
And, it makes sense because at the end of the day, it's all about fairness. And if one is more at an advantage than the other, then the one at a disadvantage should get some form of compensation.
You got it.
Makes sense.
Okay, the time is approaching close to 4:15, so we're going to have to go to a traffic update. But when we come back, do you know what one of the biggest mistakes you could make when it comes to not protecting your family? Stay tuned, and we're going to hear from Jamie. Right now, we're going out to the CJAD Traffic Center. How are the roads, Lauren?
Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corey Sirota with my co-host Matt Del Vecchio, and we are rapid-fire questioning and answering. Well, we're questioning, he's answering. Legal expert Jamie Ben-Isri, founder of Legal Logic. He's amazing. Right before the traffic break, I asked a very long question. I asked the question, do you know what one of the biggest mistakes you could make when it comes to not protecting your family? What's the answer? So
that long-winded, it's not that long-winded. I was pretty concise. It's really, making sure that your family's protected means that you have the the master plan, the will. When there's a will, there's a way.
Okay.
Like you quipped earlier, and that's so true. When there is no will in the family, and you've seen this, you know this, you're in this game. If there's no will and we don't know where the assets go to, it creates tension in the family. You know, we think that I had a better relationship with my mother, so I'm entitled to more. So unfortunately, when I inherit a legal file on that end, it becomes a lot of family issues that boil to the surface. So I play 10% lawyer, 90%, therapist. So it's really, it's really, that's the roadmap to protect the assets that you've built over your lifetime. Super simple as that.
It's so important, a will, and I'll just add to it, first of all, review the will on a regular basis. Things change, and in my world, dealing with a lot of moms and dads transitioning, get your power of attorneys and protection mandates also updated if you can. It's just you're avoiding problems.
Such a good point. I know there's some people in the studio that can do that for you, but it's such an important point. We overlook it. We think that it'll never happen to us, but 100% true.
All right, Jamie Benezri, rapid fire Q&A. We're switching gears again. All right, in Quebec, a lot of, we'll call it common law arrangements.
Common law, yeah.
And I think there are assumptions that if you're common law, you're covered. So,
like we said right before the break, the misconception, I move in with my girlfriend, is she going to take half my house?
Right.
Your girlfriend is not taking half your house. Just like Guy Laliberté's common law, with air quotes, was not able to take, his patrimony, 50% of his patrimony, because they're not married. And there's no common law in Quebec. It's essentially you're married or you're not. And if you're not, get yourself protected. If you've injected money by way of rent or to the common expenses, document that, notarize that, to make sure that if you ever break up, you're able to claw back that portion that you invested in this other man or woman's house. Super important.
Speaking of which, what's your take on prenups?
So prenups, there's a default regime in Quebec. The civil code protects, spouses of all kinds. And prenups are important when you want to make stipulations of certain things that should not belong in the family patrimony. So by default, we fall subject to this family pot, which I think is great. It's a great safety net for the couples that get into a marriage. And if you want to remove certain things, if you want, a Harley or a home or something that is not part of that, there needs to be this, we'll call it a prenup for all intents and purposes.
That's Jamie Benezri here on Life Unrehearsed. Matt Del Vecchio and Corey Sirota. We're drilling him with a whole bunch of legal questions, many, many different topics. Jamie, of course, owner of Legal Logic, and thank you again for being with us. We're going to switch gears again, and we're going to start tackling a hot topic that you get very often at the office is contesting tickets.
Yeah.
And they're more and more in June, in fact, end of June, distracted driving laws have changed, much more strict. And I don't think people realize the scope of the penalties and the points. So I'm going to give an example. I've got my mobile phone in my car. It's actually, I'm being a good boy, it's in a stationary I'm not holding it in my hand.
I see you coming.
Okay?
I see you coming.
All right.
I know where you're going.
And I'm on Waze or the phone rings.
Sure.
And so I got to do a little something on my phone, and I touch my phone while driving. That should be legit, right?
So you are absolutely incorrect, sir.
Oh my God.
To say that you are safe if you're on Waze, even if your phone portion of the device is disabled. Any manipulation, whether it's your thumb, your pinky, or you have gloves on, and you're touching a cellular device, you're gonna be dinged. 5 points. I think we're in the range of $400 at this point.
First time offense?
This first time, there's no first time. It could be 13 times in a row.
My.
It doesn't matter if you're a grandmother. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new driver. Anything in between, anything goes. Super, super high consequences now. So people have this misconception that, hey, I wasn't on my phone.
Yeah, I feel if it's fixed there,
it's
Jamie.
fixed. It
Help me out
matter.
here.
You can't touch it.
Jamie, do you know a good lawyer that I can test this?
Yeah.
You know what? We'll find you somebody in Quebec. We'll find you.
Wow,
somebody.
that is strict.
But that's a misconception. Do
Don't
not
touch.
touch under any circumstances.
Touching.
Don't touch.
Don't touch.
Don't touch.
Oh my God. I thought I was in the clear. I've got the thing just like you, Matt.
You know what? It is not a defense to go in front of a judge and say, Judge, I was not on the phone. It doesn't matter. And now there's operations where police officers rent out a bus. They look like they're like on a school trip, and they're hidden with their binoculars, and they're waiting for somebody to touch. They're waiting for a Matt Del Vecchio to touch his screen to put in an address on Waze.
I was on St. Catherine Street in a bumper to bumper. I wasn't moving.
Yes.
3 cops on a bike in between the 2 cars coming from behind.
They're unbelievable.
Looking in every car. You know,
Okay.
so they're out there. Watch it. Don't touch.
Don't touch.
So I hope people are hearing this and recognizing it, like my family.
The Sorotas.
The Sorotas, the Frankels, make sure. Okay, so that's one. And can we contest?
You can contest, but there's a big difference between contesting because you have an excuse, meaning it was urgent, or my wife wanted to know what was for dinner. And
That is urgent.
It depends. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's urgent too. But that's an excuse. A judge
fair
cannot
enough.
acquit you with those facts.
All right, Jamie Ben-Ezri from Legal Logic. We have two more real quick questions.
Let's do it.
Super rapid fire. Stop signs.
Yeah.
This is a so-called American stop, and you get busted.
So
what's the rule?
So I think it comes from a sitcom. I don't even know where it comes from. But the American stop concept is when you roll through. Here we have the impression that if we make a 3-second stop, or there's really no defined parameters in the law. It's basically you got to stop au panneau d'arrêt at the panel. So
Okay.
if there's a white line and it's not at the exact same location as the panel, rely on the panel.
Relax.
Stop, fully immobilize your vehicle. You should get to 0, and then you proceed. If the police officer is there, you should have a visual on the police officer, and then you have all the criteria of making, a proper defense if you get dinged.
Okay, fair enough. What about radar guns?
Radar guns. Okay, so radar guns are tricky. Now we have these excessive speeding tickets. If you get dinged, it's on your record for 10 years. The points come back after 2, but on your record for 10 years. So this comes, for insurance companies, and it can cause all kinds of issues with insurance. But the cop does not have the obligation to show you the gun on the spot. The cop does not have the obligation to debate what speed you were or were not going on. But, you can contest it. You need to establish that you were going at an alternative speed. That is the only plausible defense.
Jamie,
Okay.
we have so much more to ask you. We're out of
Yeah.
time already. Jamie Ben-Ezri, owner of Legal Logic, thank you so much for being on the show.
I love being here. Thank you.
And how could people reach you?
They can reach me, Jamie Ben-Ezri, on LinkedIn, Legal Logic as well. For tickets, anything that goes to ticketaid.ca on Facebook as well. And I'm pretty decent on Instagram, so I spend a lot of time there.
Well, thank you very
Okay.
much. Just great.
Thank you so much. I want a Jamie Ben-Ezri in my pocket, so I can just pull him out
I
when I
am
have the
in your
question. It would be great. So thanks again. Coming up after the news, we're going to be talking about diabetes, the good, the bad, and the ugly, with one of Montreal's leading endocrinologists.
You did it, Corey.
I did
All
it.
right.
Dr. Mark Sherman. That's coming up right after our news break.
Live Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.